See it. Is there anyone here that didn't get this booklet that we gave out on Friday, Mashiach Geula? Let me pass a few down whoever didn't get it. Thank you. Before we go to that, I just want to mention something. It's Wednesday today, a few days left to Rosh Hashanah. So I just want to go over a few things important to know for Rosh Hashanah. One of them is, again, everyone davens and asks for Hashem's brachas. It's also brought down in the Shulchan Aruch, in the Code of Jewish Law, in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. It's brought down that people also go to the gravesite of tzaddikim, of righteous people, and they ask Hashem in that holy place. Sure, yeah. Anyone else that didn't get? They ask Hashem for his blessing. In fact, the custom is not only people go to tzaddikim, they actually go to family members, go to their parents, grandparents, and they ask them to pray for them on Rosh Hashanah that they should have a good year. That's number one. So if you go to a tzaddik that's not alive, and you go to his gravesite, of course, you can go to a tzaddik who is alive and ask him for a blessing. So again, this is part of basic practice of all Jews. But in the Hasidic world, starting from the Baal Shem Tov, he introduced something which is called writing a pan. And the pan means not just to ask for the blessing, but to write a note. And the Chassid would give the Rebbe that note. Now the Rebbe, on the note, they would write, we're asking the Rebbe to pray for me, that I should have a good year, and anything that you need specifically, we put into this note. And that note is called pan, Pidyon Nefesh. Pidyon Nefesh in Hebrew means redemption of my soul. So that means, again, there's much more to it, but it's just not enough time to go into all the details, that we have to sort of, like a lot of other places in Torah, where we have to redeem ourselves by giving money. So, first of all, I'm going to hand this out because there's a specific text how this is written. So I wrote the text down here on the paper. It's in Hebrew, and the words mean. No, let me give this out so you can look at it. The words mean, Anna, I'm asking. I'm asking the Rebbe, La'orer, to arouse. Rachamim Rabim, Hashem's great mercy, Aburi, for me. After you have those words, then you write for me, you write your name and your mother's name. And after that, you can add any other name that you want. Family members, children, siblings, parents. And you're asking, first of all, you ask for Ksima V'Chasima Tova, to be written and inscribed for a good year. And then you can add anything specific that's needed. Someone needs a bracha for health, a bracha for children, a bracha for marriage, whatever it may be, you can add that. And what do you do with the notes? So of course, years ago, we would give it to the Rebbe. But even that was very different. Throughout the year, when a person would write to the Rebbe, if they lived out of the country or out of town, they would send a letter in the mail. If they lived in Crown Heights, they didn't give it to the Rebbe personally. They gave it to the Rebbe's secretaries, and he handed it to the Rebbe. The one exception was Rosh Hashanah. This pan, the Rebbe would actually make a point to receive it personally. Stand by his door, everybody walk by, and hand the Rebbe this note with a request for a bracha. And of course, sometimes it was hours. In the later years, it was more than just a few hours. The Rebbe needed to do this a few times a week because there were so many people. And the Rebbe himself will say that he takes these notes, he takes them to the Ohel. But we also know the Rebbe took these notes and held it next to him during davening on Rosh Hashanah. And there was a point where the Rebbe, before blowing the shofar, the Rebbe would cover his face with his talus. And under his talus, he had all these notes. There were packages and packages of notes, and he covered his face and prayed for everybody who wrote to him about whatever they need. So I'm going to put these envelopes on the table. What do you do with these notes today? If you're going to the Ohel, then you can take the note with you, read it at the Ohel, tear it up, and leave it there. If not, you can put it into an envelope, seal it, and give it to me, and I'll take it to the Ohel. That's number one. What about the money that you're supposed to put in, which is no amount, but people put in at least a minimum of $1. That money, there's a special fund, which was called Kupas Rabbeinu. That was the fund where the money used to go to. The Rebbe would distribute money from that fund for specific purposes, and the Rebbe's secretaries continued to distribute it to the same places. So there are people in charge of that fund, and I'm going to give the money to that fund. That's one thing. So you write down on this, if if it's a pan, you want me to take it, write on it what it is. Write down PAN, give it to me, and I'll take it. If it's money, you can seal it and write, this is the money for the pan. Give it to Mai or to the secretary, and she'll get it to me. The second thing is, the Rebbe instituted another custom, and that is, it's possible that a person should give tzedakah. Tzedakah is one of the biggest mitzvahs in general, but specifically, it's one of the mitzvahs that it says it hastens the coming of Moshiach. And therefore, we give tzedakah every day. But what happens if I forget one day? So, of course, I can give twice tomorrow, but I miss giving tzedakah on that day. The Rebbe established a fund which is called Keren Hashanah. It means tzedakah by the days of the year. And in that fund, everyone would put in money that correspond to the days of the year. So, for example, this year, according to the lunar year, which we count as 355 days. So we put tzedakah in. How much should we put in? Depends how much you want to give. If you want to give a penny per day, it's 355 cents. If you want to give 10 cents for the day, it's $35.50. If you want to give you want to give a nickel per day, then it's half of that. You want to give $1 per day, you'll put in $355 for every person in the family. So again, you can take one of these envelopes, and if you want to, naturally, you write down Keren Hashanah. The Rebbe would distribute from this fund every single day. So even if I, as an individual, forgot to give tzedakah, nevertheless, it would be covered by the Rebbe giving tzedakah. And also, the Rebbe gave from this fund to every kind of tzedakah imaginable. So we have the schus and the merit that our money goes to all kinds of tzedakahs. Then there's a third thing, and the third thing is, and there's a custom brought down in the Shulchan Aruch, that before Pesach, every Jewish community should have a fund called Mois Chitim, which means money for matzah. Why? Why is that? Because Pesach is a very expensive holiday, and many people can't afford it. And a holiday is made to enjoy and have pleasure. And unfortunately, for these people, it's not a pleasure; it's a struggle. So a number of years ago, the Rebbe said that Tishrei is also a very difficult time financially. We have so many holidays, and we have a meal. We have Rosh Hashanah, we have 4 meals. Sukkot, we have another 4 meals. Shmini Atzeres Simchas is another 4 meals. And of course, there's more. Erev Yom Kippur, we have a meal. So the same thing Rebbe brought down somewhere, it says in Tanakh, where the Navi, the prophet said, send food packages to other people who don't have, so they should have an enjoyable Yom Kippur. The Rebbe said we should refresh that custom that we should give money to families. So this is the third thing. Again, you could write on the envelope is the money for the families. You could write on the envelope is the money for the 355 days of the year, or is the money for the pan. But of course, all this is free choice. You can do whatever you feel like doing. I'm just telling you what the custom is in Chabad. Yes.
When do you need
When do I need it by? Probably the best thing would be by tomorrow, because I myself will probably go to the Thursday afternoon. And also the person that I'm going to give it to, who's like the secretary who runs the fund, I'll probably also see him Friday morning. I don't know if I'll see him Friday afternoon, so it's probably best to have it by tomorrow.
Also, if you don't have cash, can we cash out you?
You could cash at me and I'll put in the cash. I'm not going to give the cash to the Rebbe's office, but if you cash at me, let me know and I'll put the cash into the envelope.
It's probably good to still give a pawn, but I already go with the shoe, but like I already went to the it's a good thing to still write, but I mean, I can at least maybe give $1 to the house.
Yeah, okay. Or,
I don't know if I'll find time to write a pawn.
okay. Everybody do whatever you can, not more than you can. Don't do what you can do. Okay, now we're going to go back to the booklet. So what we're studying here is Rambam, Maimonides, the laws of kings, and we are in chapter 11, and we are in the middle of Halacha 2. No, it's actually Halacha 1. What? This booklet, the blue booklet. Yep. In the booklet that I handed out, we are on page 6. Right. So Rambam began by saying that belief in Moshiach is something basic to Judaism. And if a person doesn't believe in Moshiach, they're going against everything that's written in the books of the prophets. That's obvious because the prophets talk a lot about Moshiach. But the Rambam adds, some people think, yeah.
I feel like I don't understand why people would do the prophets. I feel like believing in Moshiach, you want to do more good just to bring your pastor.
We'll get there soon. I just want to let's come in. Sure, yeah. Anyone else that didn't get, please speak up. So the Rambam says that not only is it against what's written in the books of the Navi, it's also against what's written in the Chumash. Where do you find in the Chumash? You're not going to find the word. There's a person going to come that's called Mashiach. That you won't find. But what you would, but what you would find in the word, what you would find in the Chumash is where it talks about it. So last time we had this class, which is on Friday, we learned how there are psukim in the Torah that say there's going to come a time the Jewish people will be in exile. They'll be dispersed in different parts of the world. And Hashem will gather us from all 4 corners of the world and bring it back to Israel. So clearly the Torah testified there'll be such a time. That's one source. Now he's going to bring another source where the Torah not only speaks about the time, but also specifically refers to the person. There's going to be an individual who is going to be Mashiach and lead us out of Galus. So let's see the source for this. I made copies, so it's going to be easy to follow. If you can give this out. Thank you. So this is in the Chumash. You see on the sheet, it's in Chumash Bamidbar, and it's Parshas Balak, chapter 24, and it's the pasuk starts with pasuk Yud Zayin 17. So this was a prophecy pronounced by Bilam. He actually wanted to curse the Jews, and Hashem, who controlled him, turned his curses into blessings. And his prophecies were actually prophecies about the future good things that are going to happen to the Jewish people. So let's read the words inside now. Again, we're on page 6. In English, the paragraph that begins with these explicit words of the Torah include all the statements made by the prophets. That's from before. Now he goes again. Mention is also made in the portion of Bilam, which Bilam prophesies the coming of 2 anointed kings. The first anointed king is David. And why was he considered a Mashiach? Because he saved Israel from oppressors. In those days, there were nations that oppressed us and were attacking us, and when the Jews were not safe. And David HaMelech managed to overcome all those people and all those nations, and eventually there was peace in the world, but not during, it was after he passed away. He was engaged in war, but after that, there was peace. Who was the king after that? It was Shlomo HaMelech. In fact, the Gemara says, why was his name Shlomo? Because it comes from the Hebrew word shalom, which means peace. And in his times, there was never a time in history that was so peaceful like in his times. But who made it peaceful? David HaMelech. After the wars, it became peaceful. So because he was the one who saved us from our oppressors, he's also called Moshiach. Let's turn the page. And it also talks about the final anointed king, which will arise, and he's going to be a descendant of David HaMelech, and he's going to be the one to redeem us in the final days. So now let's look at the pasuk. Look at pasuk 17. Again, this is words of a prophet. The prophetic words are always written in a very poetic way, and usually it's something which you have to sort of decipher what exactly it means. But these are the words. I see it, but not now. Let's turn the page. I perceive it, but not in the future. The star has gone forth from Yaakov, and the staff has arisen from Israel, which will smash the corners of Moab and impale all of the sons of Shais. Edom will be possession, and goes on. So the Rambam says, if you look at this, you see each verse has two parts. One is a prophecy about the first anointed king, David HaMelech, and the other part is a prophecy about the second anointed king, which is Moshiach. And it goes like this. Now we're looking back at the Rambam. I see him, but not now. This refers to David HaMelech. I perceive it, but not in the near future. This refers to Moshiach. So David HaMelech was not so far away. He lived a little bit over 400 years from when this prophecy was said. But Moshiach is 3,000 years later. So that's why he says, I see him, but not in the near future. Then he goes on and says, Darach Keichav Miyakov, a star should go forth from Jacob, which means that you see sometimes a shooting star, the star shines, and that is referring to King David. A staff shall arise in Israel, a staff meaning like a stick, a ruler. This refers to Melech HaMashiach. And then it says, another pasuk, he'll be crushing all the Moab princes. This was a force, a nation that was a big threat to the Jewish people, and King David had waged wars with them, and he defeated them. So that's what's hinted in the first part of the pasuk, that he was able to defeat the people of this nation called Moab. But then it says, let's turn the page, dominating all of Shei's descendants means all the nations of the world. This refers to Mashiach, that ultimately he will rule from the sea to sea, which means that Mashiach will be a ruler, not only the Jewish people, the whole world. All the nations will respect him, will look up to him, will be submitted to him, and they will look for his guidance and his wisdom and so on. Then again it says, V'haya Edom Yeresha, Edom will be demolished. Edom is one of the biblical nations, but this refers to David, King David. And then it says, and brings a verse, and David HaMelech will do that. Then it says, V'haya Yeresha, Seir will be destroyed, and that refers to King Mashiach. So basically, this is another source where the Torah clearly talks about the fact that there'll be a time where there'll be a king, and he's Mashiach, and he's a descendant of King David. So now we have two sources. One was where it says, which we learned last week, that the Jews will be dispersed in the four corners of the world and Hashem will bring us back. And the second is the prophecy of Bilam. Now he's going to bring a third source in the Chumash. What's this third source? This is where it says number 2. Similarly, in regards to the cities of refuge, it says when God will expand your borders, you must add 3 more cities. This command was never fulfilled, and God does not give commandments in vain. What does that mean? Cities of refuge means that one of the commandments in the Torah is that if God forbid a person murders someone, kills someone by mistake. By the way, it doesn't mean by accident. If it's a total accident, there's no consequences at all. If it's done intentionally, it's punishable by death. It's one of the 10 commandments. But what if it's done by mistake? Meaning, I could have been sort of negligent to a certain extent. Imagine someone throws a rock or air conditioner out the window, God forbid, and didn't look to see before if anyone is down there. So I didn't do it intentionally, but on the other hand, you're responsible. So the Torah says, in that case, it might be possible that a family member of this person will pursue the individual and try to kill him. And the truth is, he might deserve that if that person only if the person of the family does it. So he could run to one of these 6 cities, and these are cities of refuge. Once he walks into the city, first of all, he can never leave, but in that city, he's totally protected. No one could touch him. And he's safe. 6 cities. Then the Torah says, there'll come a time where you'll have more countries, not only the 7 nations, you'll also have a land of 10 nations. And then you should add 3 more cities. So the Rambam says, never was such a time. The Jewish people always had Israel, which is a land of 7 nations. So when will it be that we're going to have also the land of 3 other nations, known as Keni, Knizi, and Kadmoni? So clearly, there's a time that didn't come yet. It's going to be in the future, and that's when Moshiach comes. And not only will we be back in the land of Israel, but we will also have more land than we had throughout history. And which land is it today? Keni, Knizi, Kadmoni? I'm not sure. One of them is Lebanon. You remember when there was the Lebanon War, and the Israeli army went into Lebanon, almost very deep to reach the capital. The Rebbe then said that was witnessing the beginning of a prophecy that this land will also belong to the Jewish people. You're wondering how is it going to happen? How are they going to allow it? Will there be any wars? We're not expecting wars. Everything that's going to happen in the time of Mashiach is going to be in a peaceful way, in a way that everybody will be happy. But let's wait and see. What do we have to guess? We'll see how it's going to happen. But what we do see from here is that the Torah told us in the future you'll have 3 more cities of refuge. But there's an obvious question here, and you'll see it's in the notes on the bottom. If it's the times of Mashiach, and it's a time of goodness and happiness and everything else, we need more cities of refuge than we had before? Doesn't make sense. We should need less, or not at all, not add 3 more. So this is a question that a lot of the Mefarshim, the commentators and Torah ask. And there's more than one answer. But if you look at the bottom, you'll see they bring from the words from the Arizal. In fact, we all know that it says when Mashiach will come, no nation will lift a sword against another nation. There won't be any hate. There won't be any wars, there won't be any fighting, and there won't be any killings. So why do we need more cities of refuge? So the answer is that Arizal writes that there's so many, going to the city of refuge was also an atonement. When someone, God forbid, killed someone, even though it was by mistake, but you killed someone. You took away someone's life. And maybe halachically you're not going to be held responsible, but you do need sort of atonement for that. Going to the city of refuge was a process of atonement. It was a process of spiritual cleansing from this Avera. So what happens to all the people throughout the 3,000 years of Gullus, 2,000 years of Gullus, that we didn't have these cities, so they're lacking that cleansing. So that reason, right, so Mashiach will come, people will go to the city. In other words, people who committed this sin by mistake in the past will now go to the city. And being that it's a period of 2,000 years, we'll need more cities. Yeah.
So a couple of things. Weren't the cities supposed to be those so that they could be safe from any family members of the person who was killed?
Yeah.
So if there's not really going to be any of that going on, why would they need to go to the cities?
So that's the answer. They're not going to the cities to be protected from the persons pursuing them. They're going to go to the city for their own personal atonement and cleansing. It'll be being in Gullus is sort of an atonement and a cleansing, and that's where they're going to go.
But wasn't it like they were considered they had fully atoned once the Kohen Gadol had passed away. So if that's not going to happen,
I mean, then,
in Moshiach times, right?
right, but according to this, it's not going to have the halachic ramifications like when actually a person killed. Right? There's a precedent for this in Gemara. There's a story in Gemara where somebody by Rabbi Shmuel said, what happened was that the rabbi said that on Shabbos, you're not allowed to sit and study Torah under a candle by yourself. Why not? Because you're not allowed to increase the fire on Shabbos. It's like lighting a fire. Even if you increase, let's say, in those days, there was with oil, and the fire is getting a little bit dim. So you adjust the candle a little bit, and now the flame is bigger. On Shabbos, that's a malacha. You're not allowed to. If you're sitting and studying by yourself and you're learning, and then the light is not as good, without paying too much attention, a little bit in an absent-minded way, you're going to adjust the flame, and you did a malacha. So you're not allowed to. Rabbi Shmuel said, you don't have to worry about that. In other words, he didn't believe that it's a problem. By the way, if two people are learning together, it's not a problem, because if anyone is about to make the mistake, the other person will remind them, careful, don't touch the flame. But if it's one person, Rabbi Shmuel said, you don't have to worry. I'm not going to make that kind of mistake, that I will by mistake on Shabbos light a fire. Guess what happened? He was learning Torah. He was very engrossed in what he was learning. The flame was a little bit dim and he couldn't see clearly. So without realizing it, he adjusted the fire. And he made the story known so people should learn from him. If the rabbi says something, you're not an exception. Just follow what they say. And he wrote down in his notebook, when Moshiach comes, I'm going to bring a korban chatas. Now, he didn't do an Aveira in the times of the Beis HaMikdash. He wasn't obligated to bring a korban. But he wrote down that for additional atonement, when Moshiach comes, he'll bring a sacrifice. Same here. People who committed this sin of killing someone, God forbid, by mistake, they're going to want that additional atonement, and that additional atonement, that's why we need an extra 3 cities. That's one of the explanations. So from the fact that the Torah says you need 3 cities, we see again a third place. So these are 3 sources. And again, I'm not going to go into it in detail, but there's a beautiful, beautiful sikha from the Rebbe. Why does the Rambam require 3 sources? Why isn't one good enough? And he explains how each source has a certain advantage over the other. Like in some way, it's stronger than the other. So now let's turn to page 230. Page 9, rather. Everything that was just brought down is from the Chumash. And the Rambam concludes, but the books of the prophets, there's no need to cite proofs from the prophets. Why? Because all the books are filled with this matter. In other words, in the Navi, you don't have to look. It's all over the place. Wherever you turn a page, you'll see something about Moshiach. All the books of the prophets. So the Rambam is clearly saying that the books of the Nevi'im are all about Moshiach, but the books of the Chumash, that's where you have to search for it, and these are the 3 places where it's found. There are other places where it's hidden, there's a hint to it, it's alluded to, but these are the 3 sources. Now, the Rambam is going to describe Mashiach himself. Before we say this, we have to give a little introduction. And the introduction is, like I said in the first class we had, the Mashiach is a little bit of a controversial subject. When people talk about it, people get all heated up and argue this, that, the other thing. But the truth is, there's one big mistake that people are making. And that is, they make decisions about the subject more by their emotions than by the facts. It doesn't feel right, it doesn't sound right, it doesn't this, it doesn't that. That's not how we decide any subject of Torah. So if someone's going to ask you, are you allowed to do this and this on Shabbos? You don't say, it doesn't feel like it's the right thing to do. You look it up. There's a book called Shulchan Aruch, and you look up in the Code of Law, is this permissible or not? If it's not there, you ask a Rav who knows Shulchan Aruch to find you a source. Is there something that's written in the Torah about using this on Shabbos or doing that on Shabbos? And the same with kashrus. We don't make decisions about what's kosher, what's not kosher, because what feels good or doesn't feel good. We make decisions by what does it say in the Torah sources. The same with Mashiach. We have to look in the Torah sources because there is a lot of confusion. In fact, many people, since they're little children, they hear about Mashiach, they sing about Mashiach, but their knowledge on the subject hasn't changed from when they were 3 years old to when they're 30 years old, because they never studied Torah sources on the subject. So, for example, one of the big misconceptions of which we're still going to see is that Mashiach, someone's going to come and there's going to be miraculous things happening in an instant. And the first thing the Rabbi says is, don't think that Mashiach's arrival means that super miracles are going to take place. That's not the definition of Mashiach. So what is? And why is there? In other words, here we have a person coming along. One day, someone's going to come and say, I'm Mashiach, and I'm here to take you out of goats. Do we accept him or do we reject him? If it depends on people's feelings, then everyone has different feelings. But there has to be a Torah source on this. How do we know that this person is authentic? For example, in the Chumash, the story with Moshe Rabbeinu, how did the Jews know that Moshe was authentic? Anyone know what was the basis? Yeah.
Didn't he perform different miracles?
He performed different miracles, but there was something else even before that.
He showed different signs,
What?
but those signs he did that people would recognize.
That was the miracles you're talking about. That's what Nadia said. There's another thing. Yeah?
Will lead the Jewish people to be more observant of Torah mitzvahs.
He did that later, but initially, how did they know that he's authentic? So it says in the Chumash, and of course, when you go to Rashi, you understand it better, that Yosef, before he passed away, he said there are 2 words that someone is going to say, and when he says those words, you know that he's the authentic Mashiach. Now, does anyone remember what those words are? Okay, now I can tell you. Then it was a secret, then I can tell you. The words were Pakoi Pakadati, which means remember, I will remember you. When you hear those words from someone, you know that it's authentic. So now the question is, but if everybody knew the code, then anybody could come and say, Pakoi Pakadati. So the answer is nobody knew it. So if nobody knew it, how do they know that he's authentic, that this is the right code?
Yeah.
Very good. There was one person that knew the code, and she was still alive from the times of Yosef. It was actually a woman by the name of Serach. She was the daughter of Usher. She was the one that informed Yaakov first that his son Yosef is alive. And Yaakov, when he heard those news, he blessed her with long life. So she lived a long life. And when the Jews went out of Egypt, she was still alive. And they went to her to ask, is this the right code? And she confirmed, and on her confirmation, we accepted Moshe Rabbeinu. That's number one. Number two, in the Chumash, Moshe said to Hashem, but how can I be sure the Jews will believe me? So Hashem told him, you're going to perform 3 miracles, and I'll tell you what they are, what to do, and when you do these 3 miracles, then the Jews will believe in you. One miracle was, if you remember, that he threw his stick down on the floor, turned into a snake. Then he picked it up and it was no longer a snake. One miracle was that he took water out of the river, poured it, and it turned into blood. This is before the 10 plagues. And another miracle was he put his hand inside behind his jacket and it turned white. It became full of leprosy. Pulled it out, it became clean. Naturally, there's a lot of depth to the miracle, the reason, but he performed 3 miracles which showed that that he's really the right person. So the Rambam says Mashiach is not like that. He doesn't have to perform miracles. Yes, Alex.
Did sorcerers also do stuff like that?
What?
Like sorcerers?
Right. So it's only because Hashem said so. Normally, I would think Egypt was the sort of headquarters of all sorcery. It says they were the head of the world in sorcery, and every single kid was able to practice sorcery. So what's the big deal that someone made a miracle? But obviously, the Eibishter said, if you show these miracles, you'll see that they'll accept you. So I would think the same with Mashiach, because Moshe was, in a sense, a Mashiach. He was a redeemer. Mashiach is going to come, and the rabbi will say to him, okay, show us your miracles. So the Rambam says, no, Mashiach is different. He does not have to perform any miracles to validate his status and identity. So what does he have to do? So let's look inside and see. Number 3, which says 3, the 3rd chapter, 3rd paragraph. one should not presume that the Mashiach king must work miracles and wonders, make new creations in the world, resurrect the dead, or perform other similar deeds. That's not true. He doesn't have to do that. And he goes on to say, how does he know? What's the proof to it? But there's one word here that really could throw us off. And he says he doesn't have to bring the dead back to life. Isn't that one of the basic principles of belief? That when Mashiach comes, he'll bring the dead back to life. And don't we say that when Mashiach comes, there'll be miracles, like when they went out of Egypt? Remember, we learned that pasuk in Tanakh. So, anyone know the answer? No. So the answer is that the Rambam is not saying there won't be any miracles. Of course, there'll be miracles, and of course, the Jewish people will see the miracle of all miracles, that all the people who passed away in the past will come back alive. There's no greater miracle than that. But what the Rambam is saying is he doesn't have to perform the miracles to establish his identity. That can happen later. But to establish his identity, we should accept him, that he was sent by Hashem to take us out of Gaulas. For that, he doesn't have to perform miracles. There's another way of knowing how to identify that he's the true person who's Mashiach. It's not miracles. There's certain halachic criteria, and if he fits that halachic criteria, we can accept him as Mashiach. So if a person says, how can this person be Mashiach? He didn't do anything miraculous. The Rambam says, not only he doesn't, don't even think that he has to perform miracles. And, got it clear? Now the question is, where does the Rambam get this from? What's the source of this? Sources in Gemara. So the Rambam is now going to go into a story that's brought down in Gemara, and then we'll learn it inside. The story is, after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, we're talking about the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed by the Romans. Naturally, the Jews were in a terrible state. The Romans controlled their lives. They were tortured. They were slaves. We couldn't go back to Eretz Yisrael. Comes along a man who was a tzaddik, a righteous person, but he was also a warrior, very powerful, mighty person, very strong. And he gathered also people that were physically very strong, amazing fighters. And he began to literally and physically fight the Romans. And he captured one city after another city after another city. I think they say he captured 60 cities from the Romans. And the Rambam will say that Rabbi Akiva announced that this person is Moshiach. And not only Rabbi Akiva, but all the sages in that generation agreed with him and supported. He was sort of the leader of Jewry, so he's the one who set the tone, but everyone else followed him. So if we look at that story and we observe what happened then, we can learn from that how we're supposed to approach a person when he comes and he says he's Mashiach. What was this person's name? Anyone know? What? Bar Kochba, right. Actually, you'll see later he had another name, Ben Kuziba. So the truth is, the Mepharshim say he had two names. One was his real name, and one was sort of a nickname. The real name was Ben Kuziba. Why did they give him a name Bar Kochba? Kochav in Hebrew means what? A star. And we just learned in the Rambam that when it says in the Torah, a star will come forth, it's Moshiach, a descendant of King David. Obviously, he was a descendant of King David, and he was a tzaddik, and he was a leader. And because of that, because they thought he was Moshiach, they named him Bar Kochba, which means the son of the star. He is a star. He is the star that the Torah is talking about. Now, one of the things that we see in that story is they didn't demand of him to perform miracles, and nevertheless, they accepted him and they identified him as Mashiach. At the end, it didn't happen. And we'll soon see why and what does it mean. But the fact that they even had a thought that he is the person's Mashiach and they didn't expect him to perform miracles, he did wars, he fought. That's not a miracle, he was just a successful general in an army. And various Gemara says that his soldiers were so strong, in order to join his army, they had to be riding on a horse and stick out their thumb, and with their thumb uproot a tree while they're riding. If they can do that, they joined his army. If they couldn't do that, they couldn't join his army. And the Romans were petrified of this person. Eventually, he was killed. But he was doing this, and as a result of that, because he was bringing redemption to the Jewish people, they felt he's on the way to becoming Moshiach. And we'll learn later he was on the way, but then something happened, and because of that, it didn't come to fruition. But from this story, we see that to become known as Moshiach, one doesn't have to perform miracles. There's a halachic criteria. What is the halachic criteria? So that we'll soon see in the Rambam. Next time we learn, we'll read the story again, what happened, and what was the halachic criteria that they judged by. And what does it mean that actually he died? If that was the case, why did he not become Mashiach? So that'll all be discussed the next time we learn about this in Yirtzeh Hashem. Okay. To be continued. I'll go to the whole way to blow the shofar.
Wait, are you having? Oh, great. There you go. You don't have to worry. Yeah.
Morning. Can I give you an intro resolution?
You have Rabbi Majeski's permission.
Oh, I did it. That's right now.
Yeah, just check with Rabbi Majeski. Yeah, please.
I probably said. Why is there envelopes here?